Say it with me. People don't just vanish after crashing their car. Except in this case, he did. And that's not even the scariest part. He was literally on the phone with his parents after crashing his car in the middle of the night, waiting for them to come and pick him up. And in the distance, he sees lights, which he thinks is a nearby town. But it wasn't. And when his parents come to the exact spot that he said he was, they couldn't see him and he couldn't see them. Then suddenly he yelled, "Oh shit," before the line went silent. And then he disappeared off the face of the earth. This is the mysterious disappearance of Brandon Swanson. It is extremely unsettling and still unsolved, so let's talk about it. Brandon Swanson was a 19-year-old college student who disappeared on May 14th, 2008. He lived in Marshall, Minnesota, and was described as incredibly smart and reliable for his age. Brandon was studying wind turbines at Minnesota West Community and Technical College at the Canby campus, and on May 14th, 2008, classes at Minnesota West ended for the academic year. So to celebrate, Brandon and a bunch of his friends/classmates all partied and had a good time. That evening, Brandon stayed in Canby and went to 2 separate parties in which he drank some alcohol. His friend said that although he was seen drinking, he didn't seem drunk or anything. Just before midnight, Brandon decided to drive back home to Marshall, so off he went, driving the 30 miles back home. He grew up in this area and knew it like the back of his hand, and usually he would have taken Minnesota State Highway 68 to get home. This was the most direct route between Canby and Marshall, but for some reason that night, Brandon decided to take the back roads home, so this put him on some pretty remote farm roads. It seems like he did this to possibly avoid getting pulled over on the main road, but that has never been proven, just kind of my input on why he might have chosen to take the back roads that night, which he wasn't used to. But Brandon never made it home, and what happened after this has never been explained. At around 2 a.m., he called his parents and told them that he had crashed his car into a ditch and wasn't able to push it out. He said he was okay, but asked them if they could come and pick him up, and of course they said yes. As they were driving to Brandon, they kept him on the phone, and since this was a remote area, sometimes the call would drop, so they'd have to call back. But eventually they drove to where they thought Brandon was, and to make it easier to find him, Brandon stayed with his car and started flashing his headlights to get their attention and signal them. What's strange though is that even though his parents were at the location that Brandon said he was at, they couldn't see him and he couldn't see them. After a while, Brandon got tired of waiting and told his parents that he was going to leave his car and walk towards some lights that he could see off in the distance. Brandon thought the lights he was seeing was the small town of Lind, which is roughly 7 miles from Marshall. The lights didn't seem that far away, and this worked out perfectly because he had a friend who lived in Lind, so he decided to just start walking towards the lights. He told his dad to go to the parking lot of this really popular bar in town and wait for him, so they did, all while staying on the phone with him. As he was walking, Brandon told his parents that he was going to cut across a field as a shortcut, and that he could now hear water nearby and was passing some fences. So 2:30 in the morning hits, and this is now 47 minutes into the phone call with his parents. This is when Brandon suddenly yelled, quote, "Oh shit," end quote. And after this, the call went silent. His parents eventually hung up and tried calling him back multiple times, but Brandon never answered. And little did anyone know that those were the last words he would ever say. His parents tried driving around looking for him, but they found nothing. And by 6:30 the next morning, they were already at the police station trying to report him missing. But what's insane though is that the police just brushed this off and told them to wait. They told them that it's pretty typical for a young man his age to stay out all night after the last day of college classes. One officer even told his parents that it was Brandon's right to be missing. Later that day though, police did start searching, but really no progress would be made until they accessed Brandon's phone records. From those records, police found that Brandon had called his parents that night near the city of Taunton, which is a small town along State Highway 68. This is 25 miles from Lind, where Brandon thought he was, which was really odd. So they started searching in this area, and soon they found Brandon's abandoned car in a ditch off of a gravel road. To be more specific, this was along the Lincoln County line, just 1 mile north of Highway 68. His car was basically high-centered and the wheels weren't touching the ground. Outside of this, nothing seemed out of the ordinary and no sign of foul play was found. But missing from the scene was Brandon and all of his personal belongings. Unfortunately, this area was either all gravel or grassy, so there were no tracks indicating which way Brandon may have started walking after getting out of his car that night. Investigators later found that his phone specifically pinged off of a tower near Minneota, which is another small town off of Highway 68. They found that the call came from within 5 miles of this tower, so authorities really focused on searching this area. But this search radius also included a portion of the Yellow Medicine River, which was really worrisome for police. What's interesting though was that from this exact location, you could see a red light on top of a grain elevator in Taunton, and police thought that this is what Brandon possibly saw that night that he thought was the town of Lind. They figured he must have walked towards this light, so they got to searching. This search involved 4 different agencies, hundreds of volunteers, tracking dogs, and even utilized helicopters. Just when they thought that they weren't going to find anything, the tracking dogs picked up a 3-mile scent trail of human remains. This trail followed the field roads until it led them to an abandoned farm. The trail then led them to the Yellow Medicine River to a point where it appeared to enter the stream. What's disturbing though is that after the dogs followed the scent to the water, they continued up across the other side of the water along that riverbank to another gravel road. Then the trail continued north towards the Yellow Medicine County line, and after this, it just stopped. But because the dogs did hit on the water, it was a possibility that Brandon may have drowned. So authorities installed gates in the water and then brought in boats to extensively search the river, but they found nothing. On the day of Brandon's disappearance, the water was running pretty fast and high, and in some areas the water was 10 feet deep. But in the following days it had gone down, so along with searching the water, police walked along the riverbanks, and they searched via horseback and ATVs. But no trace of Brandon or any of his personal belongings like his phone were ever found. Over the years, the area has been searched multiple times. There are a lot of surrounding fields and farms, and in the late fall, after everything had been harvested, police searched once again. And this is when the tracking dogs hit on another trail/scent of human remains. This trail led them into an area northwest of Porter that had not been previously searched, and this was a good sign of progress. But after searching 122 square miles, again, no trace of Brandon was ever found. He's never been seen or heard from again, and although we don't know what happened that night, there are a few theories. Theory number one is that he fell into the Yellow Medicine River and drowned. His scent was traced to a portion of the river, although it did come out the other side and onto a gravel road. This would line up with him having cut through a field that night, and he even told his dad that he heard water nearby. But authorities have heavily searched the water and have continuously found nothing. And in 2021, the river actually dried up due to a drought, so authorities excavated it, and still they found absolutely nothing. It really seems like he is not in that river. It's also weird that when his parents kept calling him back after he yelled "oh shit," the calls would go through every time and not just go straight to voicemail. I feel like if it was in the water, it wouldn't have done that. Theory number two is that Brandon fell somewhere in the fields, got hurt, and succumbed to the elements. It's very possible that he fell into a well or a crevice of some sort and just died before anyone could find him. It's also possible that Brandon walked onto a farmer's property, somehow fell, and got knocked out. Then some farm machinery ran him over, and this does align with some reports saying that the tracking dogs picked up on his scent on some farming equipment. It could be totally possible that the farmer panicked and just didn't say anything. And this was kind of backed up when a farmer in the area reportedly refused to let authorities search his property. Although that does seem sketchy to refuse to let authorities search your land for a missing man. Some said that if police came in and dug up the entire farm, it would essentially kill that farmer's business and livelihood. Like, that is their entire paycheck. So I get not wanting it to be completely ruined. And when it's put that way, it doesn't seem so sketchy. Brandon was probably more drunk than any of his friends knew or let on. So these two theories seem to make sense if that's the case. If he was really drunk in the middle of the night in an unfamiliar location, even cutting through a field to find a shortcut, it's entirely possible that an accident happened and he's just never been found. And lastly, theory number three is that foul play was involved, even though police found no evidence of this. It could be possible that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and someone was out there watching him who ended his life. Or he could have been a victim of a hit and run, and whoever was involved took his body somewhere else. But again, police found no evidence of this. Police are not ruling out foul play though, because at this point, there's zero evidence pointing to anything. What's so sad is that his parents to this day keep their front porch light on as a symbol of their hope that Brandon will one day come home. This case is so unsettling to me because it's truly like he vanished into thin air while on the phone with his parents. It's cases like this, the not knowing, that's just really disturbing. And I will die on the hill that the phenomenon of people disappearing after crashing their car needs to be studied. Too many people have done this, and it literally keeps me up at night wondering where they could possibly be. But it's now been 17 years, and whatever happened to Brandon that summer night remains a mystery.